The sleek, silver shuttle glided through the star-studded expanse of space, its destination looming ever closer. Inside, Ethan Freeman sat rigid in his seat, his fingers drumming a nervous rhythm on the armrest. The 18-year-old from a small town in Montana still couldn't believe he was here, hurtling towards the most prestigious learning institution in the known universe, the Galactic Academy. It had all happened so fast. One day, he was worrying about his calculus test, and the next, he was informed that he'd been randomly selected as Earth's representative in a new intergalactic exchange program. No special talents, no extraordinary intellect, just pure dumb luck. As the shuttle began its final approach, Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The Galactic Academy was a marvel of alien engineering, a massive structure that seemed to defy the very laws of physics. Multiple spires and domes jutted out at impossible angles, connected by shimmering bridges that appeared and disappeared like mirages. Arrival imminent. Please prepare for docking, a disembodied voice announced, its words translated into English for Ethan's benefit. With a soft hiss, the shuttle doors slid open, revealing a bustling docking bay. Ethan stepped out, his legs wobbling slightly as he adjusted to the artificial gravity. All around him, a cacophony of alien life forms moved with purpose, some floating, others slithering, a few even facing in and out of visibility. Ethan Freeman of Earth, a melodious voice called out. Ethan turned to find himself face to face with a being that defied description. It, or rather they, appeared to be a swirling mass of iridescent particles, vaguely humanoid in shape but constantly shifting. "Ah yes, that's me," Ethan stammered. The being's particles pulsed with what Ethan hoped was pleasure. "Welcome to the Galactic Academy. I am Orientation Guide X12. Please follow me." As they moved through the Academy's winding corridors, Ethan's head swiveled left and right, trying to take in everything at once. Holographic displays lined the walls, showing incomprehensible equations and diagrams. In one room, students manipulated glowing energy fields with their minds. In another, a group of gaseous beings engaged in what appeared to be a heated debate, their colors shifting rapidly. "This is incredible," Ethan murmured. "Indeed," X12 replied. "The Galactic Academy houses the brightest minds from over 10,000 civilizations. And now, for the first time, it includes a human." The weight of those words settled heavily on Ethan's shoulders. He was not just representing himself, but all of humanity. Their tour ended at a large auditorium where hundreds of new students had gathered. As Ethan took his seat, he couldn't help but notice the curious, and sometimes skeptical, glances thrown his way. A hush fell over the crowd as a tall, imposing figure strode onto the stage. The alien stood nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 arms and skin that seemed to shimmer with bioluminescence. When it spoke, its voice reverberated through the room with authority. "Greetings, new students. I am Professor Xylox, Dean of Admissions and Interspecies Relations. Welcome to the Galactic Academy." As Professor Xylox continued his welcome speech, Ethan found himself struggling to keep up. The concepts being discussed, quantum entanglement drives, psychic resonance fields, 11-dimensional calculus, were far beyond anything he'd encountered on Earth. "And remember," Xylox was saying, "while you all come from diverse backgrounds, here at the Academy, you'll be judged solely on your merit and contributions to galactic knowledge." Ethan swallowed hard. Merit. Contributions. He was just a kid from Earth who could barely wrap his head around standard physics, let alone the advanced concepts being tossed around casually here. After the orientation, Ethan made his way to his assigned quarters, a small but comfortable room that adapted to his physiological needs. As he sat on the edge of his bed, the reality of his situation finally sank in. He was light years from home, surrounded by beings of unimaginable intelligence and capability. How could he possibly hope to keep up, let alone make any meaningful contribution? A soft chime interrupted his spiraling thoughts. A holographic message appeared in the air before him. "Class schedule for Ethan Freeman." As he read through the list of subjects, advanced quantum mechanics, psychic energy manipulation 101, multidimensional ethical philosophy, Ethan's heart sank further. He was in way over his head. But as he stared out the window at the vast, star-filled expanse of space, a small spark of determination ignited within him. He might be out of his depth, but he was here now, representing not just himself, but all of humanity. He owed it to his species to at least try. With a deep breath, Ethan stood up, squared his shoulders, and began preparing for his first day of classes at the Galactic Academy. Little did he know that his journey was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would challenge not just his own perceptions, but those of the entire galactic community. The first week at the Galactic Academy was a blur of incomprehensible lectures, mind-bending assignments, and cultural faux pas for Ethan Freeman. He struggled to keep up with the pace of learning, often finding himself staring blankly at holographic displays while his alien classmates engaged in heated debates about concepts he could barely pronounce. In his advanced quantum mechanics class, Professor Zixara, a being composed entirely of pulsating energy, was explaining the intricacies of 11-dimensional space-time manipulation. Ethan's head spun as he tried to make sense of the equations floating in the air before him. Mr. Freeman, Professor Zixara's voice crackled with static electricity. Perhaps you'd like to share your thoughts on the Croxfeln paradox. Ethan felt his face flush as all eyes in the classroom turned towards him. I'm not sure I fully understand the concept, Professor, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. A ripple of what might have been laughter spread through the class. Professor Zixara's energy form flickered in what Ethan had come to recognize as disappointment. Very well. I suggest you spend extra time in the quantum simulation lab if you hope to catch up with your peers. As the class ended, Ethan gathered his things, trying to ignore the pitying looks from his classmates. He was about to leave when he felt a tap on his shoulder. Turning, he found himself face to face with Lyra, a Centaurian student whose iridescent scales shimmered in the light. "Don't let it get to you," Lyra said, her melodic voice tinged with sympathy. "The first few cycles are always the hardest." Ethan managed a weak smile. "Thanks, I just feel so out of place here." Lyra's antennae twitched in what Ethan had learned was a gesture of understanding. Many of us do at first, but give it time. You might surprise yourself. Her words, though kind, did little to boost Ethan's confidence as he made his way to the quantum simulation lab. The lab was a vast, circular room filled with shimmering energy fields and holographic interfaces. Ethan found an empty station and began the tutorial program, determined to make some progress. Hours passed as Ethan grappled with concepts that seemed to defy logic itself. Just as he was about to give up in frustration, something clicked. A pattern emerged in the swirling quantum data, a connection he hadn't seen before. Without thinking, Ethan's fingers flew across the interface, manipulating the energy fields with an intuition he didn't know he possessed. Suddenly, the holographic display before him erupted in a dazzling array of colors and shapes. Ethan stepped back, startled by the unexpected result. "Fascinating," a voice said from behind him. Ethan turned to find Professor Xylox standing there, all four of his eyes fixed on the display. "You've just solved the Heisenberg-Schrödinger equation in a way I've never seen before." Ethan blinked in confusion. I did, but I don't even understand half of what I just did." Professor Xylox's bioluminescent skin pulsed with interest. "And yet you did it. Perhaps there's more to you than meets the eye, Mr. Freeman." As word of Ethan's unexpected breakthrough spread, he found himself the subject of intense curiosity from both students and faculty. In his psychic energy manipulation class, Ethan discovered he had a knack for visualizing complex energy patterns, even if he couldn't manipulate them himself. During a multidimensional ethical philosophy debate, his unique human perspective on morality sparked a lively discussion that lasted well beyond the scheduled class time. Each small success boosted Ethan's confidence, but also brought increased scrutiny. He overheard whispers in the corridors, caught glimpses of skeptical looks from some of the faculty. Not everyone was convinced that a human could truly belong at the Galactic Academy. One evening, as Ethan was leaving the library after another long study session, he bumped into Zarok, a Volcrine student known for his eidetic memory and biting sarcasm. "Well, if it isn't the human wonder," Zarok sneered, his tentacles writhing in annoyance. "Enjoying your moment in the spotlight." Ethan sighed, too tired for confrontation. "I'm just trying to learn, like everyone else here." Zarok's eyes narrowed. "Learn? You're barely scratching the surface of what we're capable of. Your species is centuries behind the rest of us. Your presence here is nothing but a cosmic joke." Before Ethan could respond, another voice cut through the tension. "That's enough, Zarok." It was Lyra, her scales shimmering with anger. "Diversity of thought and experience is what makes the Academy great. Or have you forgotten that in your rush to judgment?" Zarok huffed indignantly, but slithered away without further comment. Lyra turned to Ethan, her expression softening. "Don't let him get to you. Some people fear what they don't understand." Ethan nodded, grateful for her support. As they walked together towards the residential wing, Lyra asked, "How do you do it, Ethan? Some of the connections you make, they're unlike anything I've seen before." Ethan shrugged, still unsure himself. "I don't know. It's like, sometimes I can see patterns, connections that just feel right. But half the time, I can't even explain why or how." Lyra's antennae twitched with curiosity. "Fascinating. You know, there's a saying on my world, the clearest view sometimes comes from the outsider's eye. Perhaps your human perspective allows you to see things the rest of us miss." As they parted ways, Ethan pondered Lyra's words. He was starting to realize that being human, being different, wasn't necessarily a disadvantage. It could be his greatest strength. Little did Ethan know, his abilities were about to be put to the ultimate test. The Galactic Aptitude exam was approaching, an event that would challenge not just his knowledge, but his very way of thinking. And in the crucible of that test, the true potential of humanity would begin to shine. The announcement of the Galactic Aptitude exam sent ripples of excitement and anxiety through the Academy. Held once every solar cycle, it was renowned for its difficulty and unpredictability. Students from across the galaxy viewed it as the ultimate test of their abilities and a chance to prove their worth. For Ethan, it represented both an opportunity and a terrifying challenge. As he sat in the grand auditorium, listening to Professor Xylox explain the exam's significance, he felt a mix of dread and determination coursing through him. The Galactic Aptitude exam, Xylox's voice boomed, is not merely a test of knowledge. It is a crucible that will challenge your ability to think, adapt, and innovate in the face of the unknown. Success here can open doors to the most prestigious research opportunities in the galaxy. Ethan glanced around, noting the intense focus on his fellow students' faces. Even the usually jovial Lyra looked serious, her scales a muted blue. "The exam will take place in the quantum simulation chamber," Xylox continued. "You will face scenarios and puzzles that may seem impossible. Remember, in the vastness of our universe, the impossible is often simply the undiscovered." As the day of the exam arrived, Ethan found himself standing before the imposing doors of the quantum simulation chamber. The air thrummed with nervous energy as students from 1,000 different species prepared themselves. "Good luck, Ethan," Lyra said, giving him an encouraging smile. "Remember, trust your instincts." Ethan nodded, taking a deep breath. "You too, Lyra. See you on the other side." As the doors slid open, Ethan stepped into a void of swirling colors and shifting realities. The chamber adapted to each student, creating a unique testing environment. For Ethan, the world solidified into a strange hybrid of familiar Earth elements and alien landscapes. The first challenge appeared before him, a complex, multi-dimensional puzzle that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Ethan's heart raced as he tried to make sense of it. The solution eluded him at first, but then he remembered Professor Zixara's lessons on 11-dimensional space-time. Closing his eyes, Ethan let his mind wander, allowing connections to form naturally. When he opened them again, he saw the puzzle in a new light. His hands moved almost of their own accord, manipulating energy fields and rearranging quantum structures. With a soft chime, the puzzle resolved itself. Encouraged, Ethan pressed on. Each new challenge pushed him to his limits, forcing him to draw on everything he had learned and things he didn't even know he knew. He encountered ethical dilemmas that made him question his own morality, mathematical problems that seemed to have no logical solution, and simulations of cosmic phenomena that boggled the mind. Through it all, Ethan relied on his unique human perspective. Where others saw rigid rules, he saw flexibility. Where established theories failed, he found unconventional solutions. His ability to think laterally, to draw connections between seemingly unrelated concepts, proved invaluable. Hours passed, though time seemed meaningless in the ever-shifting environment of the chamber. Ethan lost count of the challenges he faced, his mind working in overdrive. Just when he thought he couldn't take any more, the final test appeared. It was a simulation of a dying star system, its planets on the brink of destruction. The challenge: find a way to save the billions of lives at stake. Ethan's mind raced, drawing on everything he had learned about astrophysics, quantum mechanics, and ethical philosophy. Conventional solutions fell short. Evacuation would take too long. Stabilizing the star seemed impossible given the available resources. But as Ethan stared at the simulation, a crazy idea began to form. What if, instead of trying to save the physical planets, they could save the information that made up those worlds and their inhabitants? Ethan's fingers flew across the interface, implementing a daring plan to encode the entire star system into quantum data, preserving it in subspace until it could be reconstituted elsewhere. It was audacious, borderline impossible, and unlike anything taught in their classes. But as the simulation processed his solution, the dying star stabilized, its energy redirected into the massive data transfer. The system was saved, albeit in a form no one had anticipated. With a final, resounding chime, the exam ended. The quantum simulation chamber faded away, leaving Ethan standing in an empty room, exhausted but exhilarated. As he emerged, he found the corridor outside abuzz with activity. Students compared notes, some looking shell-shocked, others triumphant. Ethan spotted Lyra in the crowd, her scales a brilliant gold with excitement. "Ethan," she called out. "That was intense. How did you find it?" Before he could respond, a hush fell over the gathered students. Professor Xylox appeared, his bioluminescent skin pulsing with an unreadable emotion. "Mr. Freeman," he said, his voice carefully neutral, "the exam committee would like to speak with you, immediately." As Ethan followed Professor Xylox, he couldn't shake the feeling that something unprecedented had occurred. Whether it was good or bad, he couldn't tell. But one thing was certain: his performance in the Galactic aptitude exam was about to change everything. The silence in Professor Xylox's office was palpable as Ethan sat before a panel of the Academy's most esteemed faculty members. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to skepticism, with a hint of something Ethan couldn't quite place. Was it concern? Professor Xylox broke the silence, his 4 eyes fixed intently on Ethan. "Mr. Freeman, your performance in the Galactic aptitude exam has perplexed us." Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Did I do something wrong?" "Wrong." A new voice chimed in. It belonged to Professor Zixara, her energy form crackling with intensity. "You've done something unprecedented. Your solutions to several of the exam's challenges were unorthodox, to say the least." Another faculty member, a crystalline being named Dr. Quartz, spoke up. "Particularly your approach to the final challenge, encoding an entire star system as quantum data. It's theoretically possible, but no one has ever proposed it as a viable solution." Ethan's mind raced. He had thought he was simply doing his best, drawing on everything he had learned. "I just saw the connections. It felt right." Professor Xylox leaned forward, his bioluminescence pulsing rapidly. "Mr. Freeman, your exam results have sparked a debate among our faculty." Some argue that your solutions, while creative, don't follow established scientific principles. Others see potential in your unique approach. We need to understand, Professor Zixara interjected, how you arrived at these solutions. Is this a quirk of human cognition or something specific to you? What followed was an intense interrogation. The faculty probed every aspect of Ethan's thought process, asking him to explain his reasoning for each challenge. Ethan did his best to articulate the intuitive leaps his mind had made, the connections he had seen that others might have missed. As the questioning continued, a pattern began to emerge. Ethan's solutions often involved connecting disparate fields of study, combining concepts in ways that the hyper-specialized alien scientists hadn't considered. Fascinating, Dr. Quartz mused. It seems the human brain's capacity for lateral thinking and abstract reasoning is more developed than we initially believed. Professor Xylox nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps this is why the Galactic Council insisted on including humans in the Academy. Despite their relatively primitive technology, they saw potential we overlooked. As the meeting drew to a close, Ethan felt drained, but also oddly exhilarated. The faculty's interest in his thought process had shifted from skepticism to genuine curiosity. Mr. Freeman, Professor Xylox said, his tone now warm, we would like to conduct further studies on your cognitive processes, with your permission, of course. Your unique perspective could lead to breakthroughs in multiple fields. Ethan nodded, still processing the implications of what had just happened. As he left the office, he found Lyra waiting anxiously in the corridor. Ethan, what happened? Are you in trouble? Her scales shimmered with concern. Ethan shook his head, a smile slowly spreading across his face. No, I don't think so. In fact, I think things are about to get really interesting. Over the next few weeks, Ethan's life at the Academy transformed. He split his time between regular classes and special research sessions with various faculty members. They tested his problem-solving abilities, mapped his brain activity, and engaged him in discussions that pushed the boundaries of known science. Word of Ethan's unique abilities spread through the Academy. Many students, like Lyra, were fascinated and sought to understand his perspective. Others, like Zaruk, grew increasingly resentful of the attention the human was receiving. One day, as Ethan was leaving a particularly grueling research session, he overheard a heated conversation around the corner. This is unacceptable. It was Zaruk's voice, filled with indignation. How can we allow a primitive species to have such influence? He's changing centuries of established scientific doctrine. Change isn't always bad, Zaruk. Another voice responded calmly. Ethan recognized it as belonging to Professor Zixara. The human's perspective is opening up new avenues of research. Isn't that what science is all about? But what if he's wrong? Zaruk hissed. What if we're altering our understanding of the universe based on the flawed reasoning of an underdeveloped species? There was a pause before Professor Zixara responded. That's why we test, we verify. Science is not about being right all the time, Zaruk. It's about being willing to question, to explore new possibilities. As the voices faded, Ethan leaned against the wall, his mind whirling. He had known that not everyone would accept his ideas, but hearing the vehemence in Zaruk's voice was unsettling. Later that evening, as Ethan sat in his quarters reviewing the day's findings, an alert flashed on his communication device. It was an urgent message from Professor Xylox. Emergency meeting. All faculty and advanced students report to the Grand Auditorium immediately. Ethan's heart raced as he made his way through the suddenly bustling corridors of the Academy. Something big was happening, and he had a feeling that his newfound abilities were about to be put to the ultimate test. As he entered the auditorium, the tension in the air was palpable. Professor Xylox stood on the stage, his usual composure replaced by an urgency Ethan had never seen before. Whatever was about to happen, it was clear that the fate of more than just the Academy hung in the balance. The Grand Auditorium buzzed with nervous energy as students and faculty members filed in. Ethan found a seat next to Lyra, whose scales had taken on a muted grey color, reflecting the tense atmosphere. Professor Xylox's voice cut through the murmur of the crowd. Attention, everyone. We face a crisis that threatens not just our academy, but potentially the entire galaxy. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Xylox continued, his bioluminescence pulsing rapidly. Our long-range sensors have detected an anomaly in the fabric of space-time. It's expanding at an alarming rate, consuming everything in its path. At its current trajectory, it will reach populated systems within days. The professor manipulated a holographic display showing a visualization of the anomaly, a swirling vortex of darkness that seemed to devour light itself. Our top scientists have been working around the clock, but conventional solutions have failed. We need a different perspective. Ethan felt the weight of dozens of eyes turning towards him. His heart raced as Professor Xylox spoke again. Mr. Freeman, given your unique problem-solving abilities, we'd like you to join our crisis team. Your human perspective might be the key to finding a solution. Ethan stood, his legs shaky but his voice steady. I'll do whatever I can to help, Professor. The next few hours were a blur of frantic activity. Ethan found himself in a high-tech war room, surrounded by the brightest minds from across the galaxy. Holographic displays flickered with complex equations and simulations of the expanding anomaly. As the alien scientists debated various theories, Ethan closed his eyes, letting the flood of information wash over him. He thought about the quantum data encoding solution he proposed in the aptitude test. Could something similar work here? What if? Ethan began, his voice barely above a whisper at first. What if we're looking at this the wrong way? Instead of trying to stop the anomaly, what if we could redirect it? The room fell silent as all eyes turned to him. Encouraged, Ethan continued, his confidence growing. The anomaly is consuming everything in its path, right? What if we could give it something it can't consume, something that would cause it to collapse in on itself? Professor Zixara's energy form crackled with excitement. Intriguing. But what could possibly resist the pull of a space-time anomaly? Ethan's mind raced, drawing connections between disparate fields of study. What about antimatter? If we could create a large enough concentration of antimatter and place it in the anomaly's path, the resulting reaction could cause the anomaly to implode. Dr. Quartz finished, her crystalline form shimmering with newfound hope. The room erupted into a flurry of activity as the scientists began running simulations based on Ethan's idea. Hours passed as they refined the concept, working out the logistics of creating and deploying enough antimatter to affect the anomaly. As dawn broke, casting an alien light through the windows of the war room, Professor Xylox made the announcement. The simulations are conclusive. This plan has the highest probability of success. We're moving forward with Operation Novablast. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. The entire academy mobilized, with students and faculty working around the clock to bring the plan to fruition. Ethan found himself at the center of it all, his unique perspective constantly in demand as they fine-tuned the details. Finally, the day of reckoning arrived. Ethan stood on the bridge of the Academy's flagship, the Stellar Forge, as it approached the coordinates where they would deploy the antimatter payload. The swirling vortex of the anomaly loomed before them, a terrifying spectacle that seemed to mock their efforts. Antimatter containment at 100%, reported Dr. Quartz from her station. Ready for deployment on your mark, Professor. Professor Xylox turned to Ethan, his 4 eyes filled with a mix of hope and trepidation. Mr. Freeman, this was your idea. Would you like to do the honors? Ethan's hand hovered over the deployment controls, the weight of billions of lives resting on his decision. He thought of Earth, so far away and yet potentially in the path of this cosmic destroyer. With a deep breath, he pressed the button. Antimatter payload deployed, announced Lyra, who had insisted on joining the mission despite the danger. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a flash brighter than 1,000 suns, the anomaly began to contort. It writhed and twisted, as if in pain, before suddenly collapsing in on itself with a silent but powerful implosion. Cheers erupted on the bridge as the sensors confirmed what their eyes could scarcely believe. The anomaly was gone, leaving behind nothing but empty space and a profound sense of relief. As the Stellar Forge began its journey back to the Academy, Ethan found himself surrounded by his alien peers, all eager to congratulate him and express their gratitude. Even Zorak approached, his tentacles twisting in what Ethan now recognized as a gesture of respect. "I may have misjudged you, human," Zorak said, his voice low. "Perhaps there is more to your species than I realized." Ethan smiled, extending his hand in a gesture of peace. "We all have something to learn from each other, Zorak. That's what makes the galaxy so amazing." As they docked at the Academy, Ethan realized that something fundamental had changed. He was no longer just the odd human out, struggling to fit in. He had become a bridge between humanity and the wider galactic community, opening doors to possibilities that neither had imagined before. The crisis had been averted, but Ethan knew that this was just the beginning. The true potential of humanity was only starting to be understood, and he couldn't wait to see what the future held. In the weeks following the successful resolution of the space-time anomaly crisis, the Galactic Academy buzzed with a new energy. The event, now dubbed the Freeman Intervention in academic circles, had sparked a renewed interest in cross-species collaboration and unconventional problem-solving. Ethan found himself at the center of this paradigm shift. As he walked through the Academy's corridors, he no longer felt like an outsider. Instead, he was greeted with respect and curiosity by students and faculty alike. One morning, as Ethan prepared for his classes, he received an unexpected summons to Professor Xylox's office. Upon entering, he was surprised to find not only Xylox, but also several high-ranking members of the Galactic Council present. "Mr. Freeman," Professor Xylox began, his bioluminescence pulsing with excitement, "your actions have not gone unnoticed. The Galactic Council has a proposal for you." A tall, ethereal being stepped forward. "Greetings, Ethan Freeman of Earth. I am Counselor Zephyr. We believe your unique human perspective, combined with the advanced knowledge you've gained here, could be invaluable in addressing some of the galaxy's most pressing issues." Ethan listened in awe as they outlined their proposal. They wanted him to lead a new initiative, the Interspecies Collaborative Think Tank. This group would bring together brilliant minds from various species to tackle complex galactic problems. "Your ability to draw connections between disparate fields of study is precisely what we need," Counselor Zephyr explained. "We believe this approach could lead to breakthroughs in everything from sustainable energy to peaceful conflict resolution." Overwhelmed but excited, Ethan accepted the role. Over the next few months, he worked tirelessly to establish the think tank. He recruited a diverse team, including Lyra, whose intuitive understanding of quantum mechanics complemented his lateral thinking, and even Zorak, whose eidetic memory proved invaluable in cross-referencing vast amounts of data. The think tank's first major project was to address the energy crisis facing several outer rim planets. Drawing on his experience with the space-time anomaly, Ethan proposed a radical solution: harnessing the power of miniature, controlled quantum singularities. "It's risky," Lyra had warned during one of their brainstorming sessions. "But the potential benefits far outweigh the risks," Zorak countered, surprising everyone with his support of Ethan's idea. After months of rigorous testing and refinement, the quantum singularity reactors were deployed. The success was beyond anyone's expectations, providing clean, nearly limitless energy to worlds that had been on the brink of collapse. As news of the think tank's achievements spread, more and more species began to take notice of humanity. Diplomatic relations between Earth and the Galactic Federation strengthened, with cultural exchange programs flourishing. 1 year after the Freeman intervention, Ethan found himself standing on a stage before a vast audience of beings from across the galaxy. He was there to deliver a lecture on the importance of diverse perspectives in scientific advancement. As he looked out at the sea of faces, some humanoid, others completely alien, Ethan felt a profound sense of belonging. He thought back to his first day at the Academy, how out of place he had felt, and marveled at how far he'd come. "The universe is vast and full of wonders," Ethan began, his voice clear and confident. "But its greatest asset is the diversity of life and thought it contains. Each species, each individual, brings a unique perspective to the table. It's in the collaboration of these perspectives that we find our greatest strength." He went on to discuss how human creativity and adaptability, when combined with the advanced knowledge of other species, had led to unprecedented advancements. He shared anecdotes from the think tank's projects, emphasizing how solutions often came from unexpected sources. "We stand on the brink of a new era," Ethan concluded, "one where the boundaries between species fade away, replaced by a shared quest for knowledge and understanding. Together, there's no challenge we cannot overcome, no mystery we cannot unravel." The applause that followed was thunderous, reverberating through the auditorium and symbolically across the galaxy. As Ethan left the stage, he was greeted by Professor Xylox. The alien's eyes shimmered with what Ethan now recognized as pride. "When we first included humans in the academy, we hoped to teach you," Xylox said. "We never imagined how much you would teach us." Ethan smiled, thinking of the long journey ahead. The galaxy was vast, full of wonders and challenges alike. But with cooperation and understanding, with the unique strengths of each species working in harmony, he knew they could face whatever the universe had in store. As he looked out at the stars twinkling in the night sky, Ethan felt a sense of excitement and purpose. This was just the beginning. Humanity had found its place in the galactic community, not as conquerors or subordinates, but as partners, bringing their unique spark of creativity and determination to light the way forward. The future, vast and unknown, beckoned, and Ethan Freeman, once an ordinary boy from Earth, now a bridge between worlds, was ready to meet it head-on.